Hi, I'm Jeff Farnwell, Director of the MBA program at Rockford University. About 18 months ago, the Rockford Chamber of Commerce set out to make networking easier in Rockford by identifying area people you should know in business. Currently, 41 people have been recognized and celebrated as one of these people. This series of talks, held at Rockford University, was designed to provide a vehicle for the public to hear from and learn about each of the people you should know. I hope you enjoy this talk.
I always hate to interrupt because everybody's talking so I'm sorry for interrupting, but welcome please. And if you would all turn off your cell phones if you haven't done that yet, or silence them. I have the pleasure today of introducing Patrick O'Keefe, who was born and raised in Rockford. He graduated from Rockford West High and Northern Illinois University and has lived here most of his life. Patrick continued executive education in business and marketing here at Rockford University and at University of Wisconsin-Madison. He did work over 25 years at Eclipse here in Rockford in various areas of the company. In 2014, not only was he one of the 20 people you should know, he took the position of leading communications for Transform Rockford. Transform Rockford is a not-for-profit organization with the mission to facilitate the creation and implementation of a strategic plan by the community for the purposes of dramatically improving the social and economic well-being of the community and its residents. Patrick is an active community volunteer and promoter of the Rockford region. He has a variety of past decades, Rockford, World Council of Northern Illinois, YMCA Rowing Club, Rockford Coronado Concert Association, the Rockford Area Convention and Visitors Bureau. He currently serves on the boards of the Rockford Art Museum, Friends of the Coronado Foundation, Rockford Museum Park, and Rockford Memorial Hospital Foundation. Hi, welcome. Patrick's talk today is entitled, Why Engaging Your Community Matters. Thank you. To tell you before I forget, this is for you. Thank you so
Michelle.
much for coming.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you all for joining us today. Hi, Harlan. How are you? Thank you for the gift. That's okay. Well, we're glad to see you. Thanks for that nice introduction, Michelle. It's always complicated when you hear your bio and you always think, oh, well, okay, that's good. And we know a lot of other people really are involved in the community, and that's what makes our community great, I think. As Michelle mentioned, I'm a Rockford native. I'm really a Rockford cheerleader. I like Rockford a ton. It's been my pleasure to get involved with Transform Rockford. When I retired from Eclipse, I volunteered almost full-time at Transform Rockford for about 9 months, and then about 10 months ago became a staff member. Sort of my insertion into Transform Rockford was just the continuation of my engagement in our community. A lot of what I've done over the years has been allowed to me by supportive family and friends and employers. And I know a lot of you that I see here today are supported by your employers, so you can get engaged and involved in the community. And I know sometimes that's key. A lot of folks can't become engaged in their community because of the types of work they do or their travel schedules, or an employer that's not so friendly to you being away and taking time to help support the community. So I think it's wonderful. As Michelle said, I worked for 25 years at a locally owned company called Eclipse. The business was in the same family for about 110 years. It was sold after I left, and oddly enough, 2 days ago the company was already sold again. It was sold 10 months ago, and it was the parent company sold the company again just a couple days ago. That's one of the things we see on the landscape that changes with volunteerism and being engaged in your community when those businesses sometimes are no longer housed here. I've worked to help raise money for a lot of different organizations, and the dynamic changes when companies move. So I had the pleasure of working at Eclipse for 25 years. The company and the family that owned it were very supportive of the community, the Perks family, and were very engaged and very supportive of anything that any of their team members wanted to do to get involved in the community. So the subject of my discussion today is why engaging the community matters. And I think of it in two terms, as the individual being involved in the community and we traditionally, I think most of us that have been volunteers get involved based on something that we have a passion for or something that we're interested in. And that's sort of a pathway to get involved, whether it's with your church or a social organization or a sport that you're interested in or a particular social services organization. So I think that's a great way for people to have an entry path. I sort of covered a little bit last year in the article that I was featured in the magazine for the 20 people you should know. And I talked about volunteerism really being inherent as a child. It was a very big part of my family, being involved and engaged in the community. So very early on, my parents set a high example of not where you'd volunteer or get involved to give your time, talent, or treasure, but how many places or what you're interested. So a couple of the organizations I'll talk about that I've been involved in for years, and one being the Rockford Art Museum. I started volunteering there as probably an 8 or 9-year-old kid at Greenwich Village Art Fair. My mother was involved with that effort, and I probably made popcorns or worked the puppet show booth, for years, and that was sort of an initial. So it's been my pleasure over the years then, and had become pretty highly involved in the art museum and knew a lot of friends there and became a board member a number of years ago. I use it as an example. I think that we have so many awesome organizations on the landscape of our community, arts and culture. I've worked on a lot of those as well as social services. And I think it really is an opportunity for people to get engaged. I think those of us that have been around and volunteered for a lot of things, we have a responsibility to encourage next generations. Or sometimes people are very, very busy during their starting of their professional careers and their child rearing years. And sometimes people don't come to become engaged until they're 50 years old, when they're maybe empty nesters or their life slows down a little bit. And sometimes I've seen volunteers get involved upon their retirement. They really are not able to or commit extra time or energy until they're retired. So I really perceive it as a continuum of when you get involved and engaged in your community. I'm an example of someone who started very early, but I think encouraging young people to be a part of their community and get engaged is very, very important. As I mentioned, I believe it in 3 parts of being engaged. It's what you contribute or give. As I said, many times you get involved in a cause that's something near and dear to you or you have a passion about. I also regard it as what you're bringing to the community, to the organization. Your expertise. If you're an accountant, I've done a lot of board development for organizations. Everybody's looking for accountants because you want an accountant on your board. But whatever your skill is, it's a way to bring your expertise. And then thirdly, I think, and help the organization advance their mission or cause. And thirdly, I think it's what comes back to you. I think many times people don't view their engagement in the community or their volunteer work as a self-development tool. You gain skills when you volunteer. You get exposed to different concepts that maybe your own organization doesn't have. I'll talk a little bit, I'll rob a few minutes at the end to talk about Transform Rockford. But I think that's been a key area of Transform Rockford. A lot of the people in this room, Michelle and Bern, are volunteers, and Pam's, one of the things I'm going to talk about is an output of some work we did with Pam. Transform Rockford, I think, has been fun to see people that raise their hand and say, I don't know anything about X, but I'd like to volunteer in that area because it would be a challenge or a growth opportunity for me. So I think that's something that sometimes we underappreciate or forget, is volunteering or getting exposed to an organization helps for personal growth as well, gives you, new ideas. One of the things for me personally that's been really a great part of my life has been, I think of, when I look at my close circle of personal friends, most of the people that I'm very close to are people that I met through volunteering. And when I reflect on that, I think, we probably had some common interests. A lot of times you meet some people that are very different than you, but how you develop relationships with people by volunteering on a common effort. A lot of that goes back to how you get involved, but getting involved helps you grow that way too, of meeting different people, meeting people that you perhaps would have never come across in your daily life. I know a lot of you in the room volunteer around the community too. And we talk about really kind of the network of the community and the power of the network. I'll refer to this as, and this is just an example of one of the things that we really believe in the power of that community engagement with Transform Rockford is ultimately to attain the goals that we want for our community and the vision that we have. It takes all of the people in the community. And when we drafted the vision, and I know a number of you were involved in going to those sessions, we really were purposeful about getting out there. And Harlan, I think I saw you at about 8/10 of those, but we were purposeful about getting out and, you know, meeting people where they are, engaging the community, going to the locations that were maybe locations that people wouldn't have thought we would have gone to. I know we had just a wonderful experience when we worked with the people at RAMP and other group of social service organizations. And we had one of our visioning sessions at Milestone. And the organization brought it, we had it at their McFarland facility, but I know that it was very impactful for the folks that run those organizations that serve the needs of those folks to think that we thought that way. And we had sign language interpretation and we had some other things to accommodate mobility issues, but they were very touched that, you know, that we meant all voices, that we meant to hear all voices in our visioning. So I'll stick on this, and Pam's very familiar with this. She helped us populate this, but I would encourage, when we talk about engaging community and getting the variety of voices and different voices for whatever your plan is, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, but we sort of organized around government and agencies, and this is this is flat for a reason. I mean, you should, there's a lot of depth behind this, but this is how we represent it. I would encourage everybody to think in your work about, particularly if you're, well, probably in the world of business as well, but in your social services or in your volunteer world, of thinking of your network and thinking of the people that you're connected with. Who we always think, oh, we know who we should serve, or we're connected to the people we need to be connected. But once you start we had a great experience. So I'll talk about a couple examples. Government and agencies, we talk about a lot of areas that are connected to their business, and then nonprofit, which we have a lot of awesome ones in our community, and then faith. So a lot of what we've done in Transform Rockford is we think in terms of, as we develop teams, when we engage the community, we go to this for great input to that, or could be at the table and help or give better ideas. And we really have an approach of the more voices make a better product. So we've at Transform Rockford, we really have worked on the inclusion. I think I'll pass out some brochures. Many of you have seen our shared values of transparency and inclusion, and we're constantly, as volunteers, many of you in this room for the effort, and people close to the cause, we think in terms of let's make sure we're transparent, make sure we're inclusionary, and we really do take those values to heart. Just a couple of examples about being inclusive in the Transform Rockford effort. One that's one of my favorite is we have I don't know the number, but we have a relatively large Laotian community in this community. We had a visioning session, Arlen, I'm sure you were at that. And it was the first time there's I don't want to say segregation, but between the Christian Buddhists, or the Christian Laotians and the Buddhist Laotians. And so we had a visioning session, and we had connected with a couple of community leaders in that area, and they said, well, we'll get a lot of people. We had it at Jefferson High School come together for a visioning session, and it was the first time, I think, in 20-some years, Harlan, that they, as they're within their subgroups, the Christians and the Buddhist Laotians came together. They all came, they intermingled. We had some Buddhist monks there, and we did a visioning session, and I don't know, we had 200-some people. I mean, it was wonderful. So it was really, and they remarked, those participants, about coming together for sort of a single cause and a single vision. They were wanted to be more integrated, they wanted to be more connected, and had a small fundraiser, I believe it was maybe a bake sale or something of that nature, and made a donation to the victims of Fairdale. So those are sort of the small ripples that we see that we hope come out of Transform Rockford. It is in many ways a culture change. We need to engage people, have them, inspired to go towards a common vision. Many of the other things that came out of the visioning session about engaging our community that was a little bit surprising for me personally was the fact that 52 visioning sessions plus some online opportunities, and we had a couple telethons. Much of it was common in what people want. They want their kids to be safe when they go out the front door. They want a good education for their children. They want opportunities for their family. They want to, live in a place that's got recreational opportunities and is a pleasant place to live, and a place that feels like it has a culture of inspiring people to, lead fulfilling lives. And it was great to see that. When we went to Orton Keys, and we had one at Rockford Country Club for sort of the business community. There were very common things. So we distilled all that input into that vision for becoming a top 25 community by 2025, and then those impact statements. And I don't want to say it was easy, but there was a lot of commonality, what people want. People all over our community want the same things for themselves and their families. So that was an inspiring thing. There's a lot out there that we processed to get there, but it was really interesting to hear some of the comments were very similar for what people wanted for the future. Some of what we talk about is building that social capital, getting people together for a greater outcome, getting people involved to work. In our case, our effort is the vision of Transform Rockford. I'll do a little disclosure there. Transform Rockford is, meant to facilitate. That's the operative word. A lot of the implementation will not be done by us. Our teams that are putting together the strategies, we will use the resources that exist or that we need to create in our community. We're just a facilitator. Get the community on a pathway to a vision that we haven't really had anybody say, gee, that's not a vision that I'd like to be a part of, or a preferred future that I'd like to be a part of. So we had broad support of it. And part of what we want to do with it is go there using our shared values. So the shared values that we've developed, and I'll probably pass these out now, I'm referring to them, have a lot to do with how we treat and respect each other. That we want to have. Sorry, I'm moving. Yeah, 2 minutes. So on the back of this brochure, you see our shared values. We really, with that discussion of transparency, inclusion, and thinking about these as an area to engage, we really use these as the baseline. We've had a number of organizations, which is great, adopt these. We do feel that they're meaningful. Some people say, sure, that's motherhood and apple pie, and of course we should all think that way and treat each other that way. But we still see examples on our landscape of our community where things aren't handled this way. We've had some recent things in the media and some concerns about redevelopment of our subsidized housing stock. We feel it as an effort to continue to educate people of, let's talk about issues, not people. Let's use our shared values as a grounding area. There's a lot of, we need community to be involved, but we also need to be able to understand and respect all of the members of our community and see how they fit. And I personally think back to those visioning sessions where, all the various types of people we talk to, they do want, as I said, their child to feel safe when they walk out the door. They want opportunities. They want part of being inclusive and broadly engaging the community. I'll talk just briefly about Transform Rockford. As I mentioned, inside are the impact statements. So those are really the areas that came out of the visioning sessions that are where we need to go. We've had some feedback that people don't see what's in there. Sort of one of my favorite ones is the short, crisp safety. All people are safe and feel safe regardless of address, and that we really felt boiled down. It shouldn't be. We should all feel that way and be safe regardless of where we are. We should aspire to do that as a community. So I think just before we go to questions, I'll sort of wrap up that getting involved, engaging, the two-way, getting involved and engaging your community as an individual is important. Some people find a way to do that as a family, and I think that's a great way to get young people engaged, as well as engaging others. Reach out, get connected. I think it's a great, Harlan's an awesome example of, it's fun to just turn up to some neighborhood association meeting that's not your neighborhood.